welcome everybody to the community forum, virtual community forum for the new elementary school in Stoughton. We have scheduled this as the first installment we thought would be helpful for people in lunch. That's why I want to stay on time. We have another one at 7 o'clock tonight that is a repeat of what we have, what you'll see today. So we're going to go through the presentation. I'll go quickly tell you what we're going to talk about. We're going to head right into it. And then at the end, we'll open up the Q&A line so that, or you can actually add questions while we talk. We're not going to handle them until the end though, so we get through the whole presentation, because we assume some questions might get answered, you know, in the context of the presentation. So as you can see on the agenda, we're going to talk a bit about how we got here and the need for the project. We are going to talk, Dr. Baeder is going to talk about the town-wide elementary school improvement plan and how this really fits into a much bigger and more holistic look at education in Stoughton. We will also talk about where we are now, and particularly that'll be around the design and what the project represents, and then a timeline and next steps, and the impact to this Stoughton, the community at large. So next slide, please. So this is, okay, yeah, and I want to introduce quickly, this is a video we'll try to show it at the end to catch people who may have joined late, but this is a video that DRA produced showing the new project. So we'll just let that play. Okay, so TJ, I think you're on board now. If you want to pick up.
Yep, I am. I apologize for being late. I had to work through a Zoom update for some reason. So on behalf of the building committee, I thank everybody who logged in and is watching this. And if Tim covered anything that I intended to say in the beginning and there's any repetition, I apologize. I just want to say, you know, from our perspective, we're presenting to the community today an elementary school project that was founded in a need-based statement of interest filed for the South School. But indeed, the project is way beyond that. It is something that will affect the elementary school population and the town generally. And I hope that comes through in the presentation. And on behalf of the school building committee, I do appreciate your time. If I can get into the timeline, how we got to this point and where we're going to go from here, so you can hear from the people who will tell you the more nuts and bolts approach to this project right now, or the status of it. So, Courtney, if you could go to the next slide, and I'll let Dr. Baeta talk more about the elementary or the school issues, which are beyond me. So this began well before today. Many of you know this. If you don't, I'll give you a bit of the history, and I can run through it very quickly because it goes back to 2010, but it's been sort of compressed in the last few years that you see, where we're actually talking about an actual building project. In 2010, there was a facilities master plan that looked at all the buildings, school buildings, town buildings, and otherwise, and determined what was needed and where, mostly for budgeting purposes, long-term planning and whatnot. It was in 2010 that the South School was identified as the school with the greatest need in the district. But, you know, if you followed events in the town more recently, you know that's not the first one that we focused on. And I'll get to that. That facilities master plan has been since updated. I want to say in 2017, please don't quote me on that. I was on the Board of Selectmen in 2014, and MSBA came to Stoughton at the request of Joyce Husseini, who was on the school committee, and Deborah Sauvigny, who was also on the school committee at the time, and our legislative delegations. They came to Stoughton. They toured both the high school and the South School, and they saw the greater need in the South School, but the more community impact in the high school. So in 2015, we started the high school project because that's the one that they accepted into the MSBA grant program. And if you're not familiar with that program, it's a program by which we apply. We submit a statement of interest to the MSBA. They determine our needs, and they have, over the course of time, collected a significant fund based on 1 cent per every sales tax that's charged in the state. And from that, you apply, school districts apply, they qualify based on certain needs, and then they go through a process where it's very well defined what you have to submit, how you have to submit it, and in the end, you have to meet certain goals and requirements. So that's where we are now, but it took a while to get there. So after the high school was built, South School filed what was probably the latest in 5 or 6 statements of interest that had been filed. They had been continuing to file it over the years just to keep in that MSBA queue, because the MSBA only accepts a handful of school districts each year for its new school building project program. They also do other things, MSBA, like they have a accelerated repair program where they do roofs and windows and I think boilers also. And they did the windows, they paid for the windows in the high school with the grant. But getting beyond that, we were invited into the feasibility study program by the MSBA in 2001. Town meeting had appropriated in 2002, that was voted on twice. The latest was in December 2002, funded to the tune of, at the time, $750,000 for the feasibility study. A little low at the time. We supplemented that fund to $1 million to study, a portion of which is reimbursable. And then we entered into this feasibility study period where we appoint certain professionals. Vertex, you heard from Tim Bonfatti, also with him is Chin Lin. And then we hired a designer, which is a designer that the committee doesn't actually appoint. We vote on the designer, but it's chosen by a designer selection panel that the MSBA has. And they provided us with a designer known as DRA that you may have heard of before because they did the high school. And I couldn't be more thrilled because they know this community, they know its need, and over the course of the last year, we have gone through this program of feasibility study to the point now where we have a project to describe to you today. And in May this year at town meeting, we will present to the town meeting members a request for appropriation to fund that project. And after that, it will be on the ballot as a debt exclusion vote for the voters so that we can go forward and build it with an anticipated completion date of, I think it's 2017. That portion of my screen is covered, but I don't need it. I'll wrap up with this. So on schedule, the facilities master plan that started back in 2010, it sets forth needs, and it also prescribes a certain concept for how you will address those. What we're in the process of doing is about every 8 to 10 years, as we've going now, we did the high school, we're focusing on buildings that were built back in the 50s and 60s. So 60 plus years old our school buildings are. And now it seems like the time that everybody agrees we should be doing the South School, and the building committee has presented to you a plan on how exactly we should do that. So at that, I appreciate your time, and I'd like to pass off to, I think it's Dr. Baeta, to tell you something more significant about this project.
Thank you, TJ, and thank you to all that are on the call today. First of all, this district master plan that TJ just mentioned actually was revoted and updated in March of 23. So just very recently as part of this new school going forward. This plan that you are seeing today supports really an educational plan for the future of Stoughton, and the enrollment number for that school of 515 plus, and brings us into, although it's 2024, an elementary building that is in the 21st century. It will accommodate our increased enrollment. We are in the third year of increased enrollment, and our projections are to continue to go up. Second, an increase in student needs is part of this plan district-wide. Bringing an elementary STEM lab program to one of our elementary schools is also part of the future. Operating costs and maintenance costs, the potential both short-term and long-term by planning on what we're going to do with our other buildings that are left for the future, and that'll be worked on, but also as important to take a look at our operation costs. Limiting the travel between schools is also part of this, because it's one less school that our elementary students will be attending in K-5. Of course, our shared resources, which allows for us to potentially long-term implement creative educational options for students. And then lastly, reduce costs of multiple resources, which in general speaks to our ability to save some money and put money actually directly back into classrooms. Next slide, please. When you look at why we went this route, in front of you is exactly the reason, and I'll make it very brief because I know we can all read these slides. It really came down to the highest need and the age of the building, and TJ hit upon that in terms of the community need went to the high school, but everybody knew that the South was an area of priority. So here you have before you why the South School was moved up, and then of course the discussions that come with it, which is consolidation and redistricting. I believe I turn it over to the chair of the school committee, Catherine. Or actually, yes. No, Jake. Is it Catherine or Jake? I'm not sure.
Jake.
Sorry,
Jake.
It's to Jake. Sorry, Catherine.
Can everyone hear me? I'm working through.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
All right. My name is Jake Jordan, the principal at the South Elementary School, for those of you who don't know me. So if you've ever visited the South, the South Elementary School is a wonderful, vibrant, amazing community. We perform very well. We have great teaching staff, wonderful, welcoming community, amazing students. But the building itself is a challenge and continues to be a challenge. I think it's, talking to people who've been in the district for a long time, I think it's been a challenge pretty much from the day that it opened. But you know, just generally, the building is an older building, and the building envelope and structure are definitely not energy efficient. We have areas where it's very cold, areas where it's very warm, plexiglass windows. We have a wood wood along the envelope for a building. I mean, the building itself, you can kind of see is, for lack of a better word, deteriorating. There's a lot of leakage within the building. Water comes into the building in all new places at all new times. Every new storm is a new opportunity to find areas where there's water coming in. The cafeteria or the cafetorium does not accommodate our full student body. So unless we really, really, really want to pack everyone in, and at over 300 students, which is our highest population pretty much in the last 25 years at the South School, it is very challenging to get all those students together for community-wide events, and especially families for community-wide events as well. There is insufficient parking for arrival, dismissal, faculty parking, families. It's a beautiful location where the South School is. It's just not appropriate for what our current needs are. We have a lot of families who want to come to the school. Again, drop off, pick up. Between that and buses is, if you've ever been to the South School after 2 o'clock, between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock, it is quite an experience to see. The administrative and nursing areas are just very small. They're not coordinated in a way that makes sense for security purposes, but also for student rights. You could fit pretty much one student in our student clinic, and if any of you have been to an elementary school before, there's typically more than one student in the nurse's office at one time. That is a challenge, just for their rights. There's no front foyer to the building, so a lot of things in 21st century schools for security, there's a foyer level. You have to get buzzed into the building at multiple different points. If you've been to the South, once you are buzzed in, you are in the building. The physical needs of students and staffs, we have a lot of sloping ceilings and ceilings that have been kind of corrected over time, and issues with just, there's not a lot of light in rooms. There's more light in other rooms. It's not enough space for all the desks that are there. Some rooms are too big. A lot of rooms are too small. It's a really interesting a setup that has definitely been, adjusted over time. Supportive space for 21st century needs. I mean, we have a lot of people who have offices in small groups, but those offices don't exist. So we kind of create new spaces where we can make those spaces, cut bigger spaces into small spaces. It's definitely challenging and not appropriate for what our students currently need right now. We do the best that we possibly can, and we do it really well, but it is very challenging with the space. For special education students, depending on their needs, might need smaller spaces or different modified classrooms. Those don't currently exist at the South School. We, just create new spaces within old spaces to try to make everything work. Kindergarten areas, new kindergartens have like bathrooms within the kindergarten classes for students. It makes sense at kindergarten age, things like that. We do not have those things. We don't have a kindergarten recess area. We don't have designated kindergarten areas. Generally speaking, this building was built and all the classrooms are kind of the same size, because when it opened in the early 50s, that was what we were doing for school buildings, and that has not changed over time. I'm happy to speak more about the South School, but these are some of the deficiencies, but there are a lot of great things that happen here. And I think at this point, I'm supposed to turn it over to Mrs. Weiss.
Thank you, Mr. Dorr. I'm Catherine Weiss, the chair of the Stoughton School Committee. I'm also serving on the building committee as the Stoughton School Committee rep. I wanted to address a little bit about the consolidation, the decision to consolidate and move from 5 to 4 elementary schools. That's been the result of several years of discussion and study going back to the district's facility master plan developed in 2017 and updated, as Dr. Baeta said, in 2023. The building committee held multiple forums with stakeholders, including educators, families, and residents in the first half of 2023. Following these meetings, the school committee voted to consolidate from 5 to 4 elementary schools, confirming that the South and the Wilkins are the buildings to be studied for repurposing in July of 2023. Next slide, please. The district is at the point of needing to redistrict to reduce pockets of overcrowding, whether this new building succeeds or not. A new consolidated building allows for more flexibility and would accommodate future population bubbles more easily than a very small school like the South School. Note that we wouldn't just merge the South and the Wilkins schools or bus the students who attend the Wilkins over to the new elementary school. Rather, we'd redraw the district lines with consideration of the town's demographics, needs, and resources. That would require further study and stakeholder input before we implement that. Dedicated classrooms in the new school will allow the district to better serve the needs of our growing special education population. Providing more and better special education programming and services will improve students' education and social and emotional well-being, and reducing the number of students sent out of district also has financial benefits for us. In combination with the ongoing improvements to existing school buildings, the new building and the subsequent redistricting will enable the Stoughton Public Schools to address inequalities and amenities across the entire district. The new building, plus the 3 buildings shown here, the Hanson, the Dawn, the Gibbons, would mean more equitable and accessible facilities for all of Stoughton's elementary school students. These buildings also better fit Stoughton's vision for elementary education programming, and I will hand off to the principals now to explain more about the education plan.
Thank you. So about a year ago, Mr. Dorr and I drafted what is known as the educational plan, and this is actually the vision of what we consider future education in Stoughton. And when writing this plan, we took into consideration ideas and opinions from multiple stakeholders within the district and the community. And we took all of those ideas and we put together the educational plan, which encompasses the different things listed here on the slide. The video did a nice job of showing how these ideas have actually become realized in the current design. And Dr. Baeta also mentioned just a little bit ago how the reason for this new building is to incorporate 21st century learning opportunities for our students that we currently don't have because we can't offer them due to the limitations of our buildings currently. So in the educational plan, one of the things that we really wanted to make sure we focused on was the idea of maintaining that neighborhood feel, especially when we're looking at a consolidation and having more students in the new building than what we have currently. The idea of distinct neighborhoods was something that was extremely important to everybody in that visioning process. We also wanted to make sure that we took advantage of the location of the building. We oftentimes refer to it as the school in the woods. And we wanted to make sure that the outdoor spaces were something that would be able to be utilized by the teachers as an educational opportunity for the students. We also wanted to make sure that there were numerous places within the building for collaboration, not only for staff, but also for the students, as that is an extremely important part of the way teachers teach and students learn today. And along with that, there was a large emphasis on making sure that this building would be available and accessible for the community. So as you'll see when we go forward in the different design aspects of the school, there was a specific attention paid to making sure that some of these spaces, such as the gym and the cafeteria, would be able to be closed off and accessed after school hours so that the community would be able to access those spaces without having to necessarily go through the school building. Finally, we wanted to make sure that the heart of the school was the learning commons. And this was something that came up over and over again in speaking to the different people as part of this visioning process. We wanted the heart of the school to be filled with both print and technological resources for the students to access, as well as multiple opportunities for collaboration spaces right there in the front, the heart of the school. And a really important part of this is there's a STEM lab that has been visioned that is directly above this learning common area that also has access to an outdoor rooftop garden for, again, some more opportunities for student learning and education in terms of the STEM curriculum that we follow in Stoughton. Next slide, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Carl Franceschi. And I'm with DRA. We have the honor of sort of transforming that great education plan into a reality here. The process included, as was mentioned, a feasibility study phase where we did look at a whole spectrum of different options, including adding and renovating the existing South School to several different configurations of new construction on a portion of the town-owned land off of Park Street. This is land that was purchased back in the 1960s for school purposes. It remained undeveloped, but it is available for and ideal for this new school project. So the one that was selected is the one we referred to as the pinwheel design because of its configuration. It really embodies and facilitates those aspects that you just heard the principals talk about that they wanted to see in a new building. We can go through that in a moment. To orient those who aren't familiar, this new project is not sited on the existing South Elementary School property, but it's close by off of Park Street on that parcel of land, as I mentioned, that was purchased by the town for school purposes. It will have a new driveway access off of Park Street, and a secondary emergency access as well. You can see in the rendering there that the new elementary school does not utilize the entire parcel. There's a fair amount of reserve area for future development as well. Another nod to the community use aspect of this, saying the school does not need to dominate the entire site. And then just to get a little closer, so you understand, as the traffic flow is carefully considered here, so that it handles both cars and buses separately. An issue that's a real challenge at the current South School. It expands the parking areas for not just day-to-day use, but for evening and event use. And whether you arrive by car or by bus, everyone enters the main entrance at that red arrow there, which again was mentioned as a common experience that everyone will, from a secure and safe point of view, be entering the building and traveling through that learning commons. There's also adult facilities here, not just for the elementary school kids, but there's an athletic field, and there's consideration for pickleball and basketball courts as well on this site. So again, we're thinking of not only the K through 5 students, but the adults and other students and adults in the community. The configuration of the building also supports these outdoor areas by having separate wings, the so-called pinwheel design. It defines and encloses outdoor play areas, both for hard surface play at recess time, for the soft surface, rubberized surface for playground structures, outdoor classrooms, and a real connection to the outdoors, but in a contained fashion that relates well to the indoor classrooms and access points. So we envision that the entire site, as well as the building, becomes part of the teaching tool. So there are connections to outdoor trails, and there, as we said, outdoor classrooms, outdoor growing areas for plants as well. Here are some of the inspirational photographs that we shared with the district as to the possibilities for these outdoor areas, and we're still developing the details for these areas that we'll share with the community in the coming days. But you can see the possibilities here are a great way to extend the learning areas of the school to the site, including play structures that are geared for appropriate ages. So there's dedicated one for kindergarten. There's dedicated one for second grade and third graders, and hard surface play areas for older children. And for those who saw the video, we don't need to spend a great deal of time going over it. I think you can appreciate what a wonderful opportunity this is for a new building. A couple things to call out. As was mentioned, we want the building to be able to operate for the community use after school hours. So there is a dedicated entrance on the left that accesses the gym and the cafetorium without opening up the rest of the school. The central access point on the right there is the main entrance for day-to-day students, teachers, visitors entering the school immediately adjacent to the admin area. And some of the materials that you see in that rendering are kind of inspired by the site. It is a wooded site, as we said, referred to as the school in the woods. So we are using some exterior materials that recall wood material, but have longer lasting and lower maintenance requirements than wood. There will be some traditional brick, as we see in other Stoughton buildings, and there's some stone at the base because there are some stone outcroppings on the site. So all of those materials are being developed into the exterior of the building. And just to quickly walk you through the plans that again capture that education plan, each each of the wings of the building, of the pinwheel, so to speak. The two on the left side here are classroom wings. So, and each one of those represents one grade. So there's one for kindergarten, one for first grade, and then as you move up through the building, second and third are together, and then fourth and fifth are together. It is a 3-story building on that point. But the other aspects of the pinwheel are the community, you might say, the assembly spaces of cafeteria and gym. And then there's the fourth is the administration wing by the main entry. And those are 1-story portions of the building. So the building is scaled so that as you approach it, the lower height elements are, towards the front. And it incorporates all of those wonderful points as were mentioned in the education plan. And we're happy that this plan can satisfy all of those in a economical and efficient way. Here are the individual floor plans. You can see the first floor is the most extensive floor, but then as you go up, it's really those classroom wings that are 2 and 3 stories tall. And they're arranged in a way, those blue areas are classrooms, the green areas are special needs classrooms, the yellow areas are the corridors, but they're more than just corridors in this school. They are extensions of the learning areas. That's why they have the sort of alcoves off of them. They're not just double-loaded corridors with lockers on both sides. They are actually extended areas from the classrooms for special needs, for one-on-one small group, and for collaboration areas. And then in the core of the building, the heart of the building, as was mentioned, is that learning commons. It really is in the center right as you enter. It's a multi-height space flooded with natural light with the STEM room on the second floor above it. And so all of the corridors kind of feed into that central area. It really becomes the hub of the school, the really heart of the school, both in a physical and functional sense. And these are some of the inspirational images that were key, and as we developed some of these thoughts and transformed the education plan into reality. Some of these are DRA buildings, some are other architects in other districts, but all of them have a certain inspiration to the building. We want to call your attention to the lower ones that show wood structure and wood finish. We think this is particularly appropriate in this so-called school in the woods, that we actually will be using, real wood. It's a sustainable solution as well as kind of a warm and inviting material. Here's some still photographs that come from that video that you saw at the beginning of this. So this is from the second floor looking back down at the Learning Commons at the main entrance to the school. There is some separation there, but there is obviously transparency and connection that the students can make. And the stair itself, the main stair in the school, is a learning area as well. It can be used for assemblies. It obviously still provides the function of getting from first to second floor, but can be a assembly area as well. And there's still work to come in terms of designing the details of this space, but we're really excited about the potential here. We're working with students and teachers and the principals to look at how this is not just a library. Learning Commons has really changed over the years to be multi-purpose space, suitable for small gatherings and so forth, but also providing access to books still as well. And then, as was mentioned, on the second floor overlooking that Learning Commons is this STEM room. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. And it's kind of a maker space. It will have resources for a lot of project-based activities, as well as this unique access to a patio that's actually at the roof level outdoors, immediately adjacent to this space as well. So it's kind of an innovative and inspirational space that has robust infrastructure to serve for activities we don't even know about in the future. In the typical classrooms too, we are showing a variety of window sizes here on the lower level. to kind of be a little bit playful and you know, reflect the nature of the building, but they do provide obviously good natural light. And there's a lot of flexibility. These classrooms are all generally larger than you have today at the South and Wilkins, which allows for the kids not only to be, you know, in rows facing the front of the teaching wall, but to have activity areas and breakout areas within the classroom itself. And as we said, this is those collaboration areas within each classroom neighborhood. The areas that aren't just corridors, but they're extensions of the learning areas. So there are some gathering spaces with whiteboards, with monitors for display, and small breakout areas. And again, it supports not only collaboration of students, but of teachers as well. The cafeteria is a multi-purpose space, like in a lot of elementary schools these days. It doubles as the auditorium, so it has that name of cafetorium. So there is a raised stage and a curtain. The stage is accessible with a ramp as well. Every part of the school is fully accessible, but it is the dining area as well. But it can be a community access space after hours. And it also provides direct access through those windows there to the recess, to a playground for recess, so that it is convenient and efficient in circulation. And then to the left, you can see the entrance for the public after hours, if there's an evening event in the cafeteria or even a rental event to community group. Gymnasium likewise is off of that same entrance, so it could be open, say, you know, on a Saturday morning for a basketball league. It also has that facility of some spectator seating, which is you know, specifically designed for community use, not just for the elementary school. And as in all spaces in the building, we're trying to get as much natural light into the building as we can. So even the gym has that upper, what's called a clear story of windows there, bringing natural light in a nice diffuse, even way.
Thanks so much, Carl.
Thanks, TJ.
So I wanted to talk for a bit about why this is important, not just for the education of Stoughton students, but for the community in a more general sense. Certainly, improving the school facilities will have an impact on education in Stoughton. And that's been proven time and time again when through the other project we did recently. I did some reading and I found out there are actually studies that prove, or you shouldn't be surprised that there are studies, but there are studies that actually prove with a great amount of detail, and there's no shortage of these, that when you improve facilities, educational improvement follows, because improved lighting, kids aren't concerned about climate control. They just have a place where they want to be in more so than an uncomfortable, deteriorating building. So that's clear, and I don't think anybody, even our opponents, if there are any, would argue that we shouldn't be doing it to improve the facilities for our kids. But it's a harder lift for the building committee to try to convince the community that this is great for all of us for any number of reasons. First of all, if you think about the town and where you would go for parks and recreational purposes, you really don't find anything south of Halloran. If you want to pay, you can play golf on Cedar Hill Golf Course, but the furthest south you can find community parklands is probably Halloran Park. And consider the number of homes and residents, adults and children, that live in the southern portion of Stoughton off of the Sumner Street area, down in Atkinson Ave and thereabouts, all the way from, say, Gay Street south, and then along Park Street in the neighborhoods that actually travel to the north and northeast. There's probably a couple thousand homes that aren't serviced by any walking distance park. This can be that, and it can be that in a very profound way because there's good natural resources there. We have open space, it's forested land right now, and we're building a school, as you heard from several people, Carl and Katie, that fits into this as the school in the woods, a term that I had never heard of before that. Not having kids in the school and not being in the South School neighborhood, that wasn't something that was familiar to me. But I really do appreciate that we've taken into account doing that and other things on this community space. So this was a parcel of land that was reserved back in the early 60s through a taking, and then actually there were land transfers back and forth, eventually winding up with about 30 acres and through several different landowners. And it was identified for school use. That goes back to the early 60s. Now, it was important. We know, we on the committee, we're not so myopic that we don't understand there are other things going on in town. So we've asked that, we not be pigs about the site, that we reserve land for other town needs. So there will be space to do other things. And I hope that's taken advantage of by people who are smarter of and have broader ideas than I do. But it's also this parcel of land. It fits into where the town's been focusing a lot of its resources lately. You look at the recent town meeting votes, and there's been a sewer project investing in developing sewer down Park Street. There's been a number of traffic studies and different concepts to improve the traffic flow from, I know it's a straight street, but getting to like the Turnpike Street area that is north and northeast of Park Street. To get from there to the more western portions of the town, you have to cross over Park Street, and there's no great geometry there of the roadways. So our plan will have to fit in all those, but the town has been doing that. They've been looking at that. And so this will contribute to, I think, what will be an improved area of town generally. And in the end, the plan to develop that, and also I should say, the Metropolitan Area Planning Council is now it's engaged in a zoning study in order to improve the value of the land there in the form of zoning and land use, to find out, what would be the good land uses and how to rezone it to get the maximum benefit, community-wide, commercial-wise, the mix, whatever. And I think that's supposed to be completed by May. This fits into that also. And the sum total of this is to create value for the town generally, that if we put all these things together, this school program, the town's plan for sewer and development of that area, and all of this together into one window and one window of time and one comprehensive plan, we can do a great thing for this town long term. Our mandate for the MSBA is to build a building that will last at least 50 years. So we're going to do that. But in the present day, we have to plan around what's going on in town. And, every great idea takes 3 years to come to fruition. So we're doing this now, but it won't be active and used for another few years, 3 years. But in the end, we're planning for the next 20, 50 years, what will be a very active and vibrant area of the town. And it's where most of the town's value is going to come from in the form of real estate values, because that's where we're putting our efforts. I've looked at a dozen different ways you can calculate how a school building will contribute to property values. You can say anecdotally, if you build new schools, that property values improve. There's really no empirical data you can point to that shows that, because the real estate market is so difficult to predict. It ebbs and flows with the economy. What you can say is that poor schools reflect poorly on a community and will absolutely result in a decrease in values. Maybe not immediate, but eventually. It will be the town with crappy schools. And I don't think anybody wants to be that town, certainly not I. I don't have schools in the district. I don't have children in the school district. I have, but I believe in what we're trying to do because I see it. I walk around town. I hear people tell me, boy, that high school that I was fortunate and honored enough to work on, that was a great project. We came in under budget. We came in with a project that people, I think, drive by and they look at with some sort of pride. I'd like to tell you why, if you think that, why you think it, without you realizing it, is that we assembled a team that really understood the community. You, Carl Franceschi, who spoke before I do. I remember when we did the high school and he presented his first design for the high school, and I asked him pointed questions. Why did you do that? Why did you do that? And then he went into a very detailed explanation about how he went, and pictures, went around town, took pictures of different components of different buildings and how they were factored into the high school. This is much the same. This is what was created as a school in the woods, taking into account the way people have always viewed the high school. And although bigger, seating more students per day, certainly more focal in terms of size and identity, it is still being built as something that takes into account the community's needs, the history, things we take pride in the community of Stoughton. I'm very proud of that part. The team that we assembled, really appreciates and understands this town. And what we brought to you, if the town doesn't vote for this one, I guarantee you they won't come up with anything better. I'm very enthusiastic about this. And in the end, what we're trying to do is we're trying to take this and build off of it. Nobody before the high school thought that we could do the high school. I know that sounds very, daunting thing to say and unprovable. But before we did the high school, we hadn't done any large capital project like that. And the biggest obstacle we had with the high school project was people doubting that it could be done. The benefit of that project is that we've proved that we can do other big things, and this is one of them. And hopefully people will build off of this, and they will do something else big, a new police facility, new fire stations being done. I think in part because we showed how things can be done with the high school. I don't say that, boastfully. I say that, we came in, again, under budget with a building that people take pride in. And I think it made people believe that we could do big things in this community. I'm very proud of that project, very proud of this project going forward. And I hope that you agree when it comes time to vote on this several months, you'll hear about it a dozen or more times as we go forward. But I hope you agree that what we presented to you right now is really something that this town can build with. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks, TJ. That was very great. So Tim Bonfatti from Vertex. I just want to quickly go through the remaining slides and remind people, if you have questions, to use the Q&A function at the bottom, and you can start posting those questions anytime now, and we will answer them. So we know we wanted to get, we've spent the last 3 or 4 months designing the school after the decision to consolidate was made, and we knew what school we were going to design. We wanted to make sure we showed that to people, but we also know that costs are high on everyone's mind, and the project is now being estimated by 2 independent estimators. We'll reconcile those costs. We expect to have that available at the February building committee meeting, and we'll be showing the building committee the costs at that time. We will also obviously have a further community forum sometime in late February, early March. We are very happy to announce that in the fall, the MSBA significantly increased the reimbursement formula. So the amount that Stoughton will be getting for this project is much higher than were it to have been done, say, 6 or 9 months ago. And I did want to point out that the future of the South, Wilkins and Jones, which are schools that now become assets of the district, that the school committee has developed a master plan subcommittee and is looking at that, and we'll have more to report on that in the future. So these are sort of things that are hanging out there as we move toward the town meeting vote and the ballot. And next slide, we'll wrap up with the reminder of the timeline. We are going to submit, along with the schematic design report, in late February 29th. That gets us in line for the MSBA board meeting on April 24th. April of 2024. That board meeting, the town meeting, we expect to be available and be ready for the town meeting this May, the annual town meeting. And then the debt exclusion, we are now targeting currently early June. So those are the key dates as we look forward. We expect to have multiple community forums in that time frame. And with that, I'm going to open it up for questions. And I think Jeff is going to moderate the questions.
We're starting to get a few questions. And again, you can continue to ask questions in the Q&A feature. First question is, can this school design be expanded in the future, and how?
I think Carl.
All right, let me unmute myself. Yes, yes, it can. Being a three-story building, the fortunate thing is it doesn't take much of a footprint to expand it, with some significance. So there is one wing in particular where we've planned the exterior, the utilities, the ring road in such a way that we could extend one wing at least by a footprint of a couple of classrooms and related spaces on 3 stories. So you gain about 6 or 8 classrooms that way, which is fairly significant in a school this size. I don't know that you'd want to go much larger. And the cafeteria is sized already in a way that it could initially take 2 lunch servings, and that could grow to 3 lunch servings in the future. So without changing the size of the cafeteria, we could take on more students. That's a good question. No, and the MSBA actually reviews and makes sure that each project is thinking about potential future expansion, and this one does that.
Next question is about future plans for the Wilkins Elementary School.
Dr. Baeta?
I'm happy to take that one. Yeah. So the future plans for the Wilkins are going to be part of a small group that will be studying this to look at the best way for us to utilize it. We know that the South more than likely is a closed building for the future. The Wilkins, some of the areas to take a look at are alternative education, preschool is another area that we're considering. All those areas would be in play going forward.
The next question is, will the new school be used for academics during the summer?
Happy to address that. The answer would be yes.
Will the new special needs accommodations allow the town to depend less on sending students to outside facilities, basically outside of district placement?
Simple answer to that is also yes. Both special education in terms of specialized programming, as well as alternative education by utilizing freed up buildings.
The next question comes from a parent who has a kindergartner at the South currently, and they live on the very edge of the district line. And in regards to the redrawing of the district lines, will there be any prioritization given to making sure that current South school students stay in the South district or stay in this new elementary school district?
Sure, that's a really difficult question to answer based upon 2 parts. Number one, we have to be very clear that redistricting of Stoughton Public Schools is taking place regardless of this building. That's number one. So of course it happens when you're building a new building, but because of population growth and needs, we're going to be looking at redistricting in any case. The second is, can't guarantee that as part of that, not knowing where the cutoffs are going to be by street. But the fact of the matter is that'll be a plan that takes a good 6 months to 9 months to actually put together from start to finish. And we would be doing that as soon as the project goes forward in a positive way or the project doesn't go forward.
And along those lines, a question that I've seen on social media comments on Facebook, for instance, people wondering about the Wilkins student population and where they would be going in the new, when everything is reconfigured and redistricted.
Yeah, so redistricting is probably one of the most difficult things that school systems do, especially when you're looking at redistricting predominantly happens in districts our size in K-5. And it's going to be based upon where the population of students are located or potentially are located within the community. So we know that the south side of town right now is growing pretty significantly. And Mr. Dorr is on. He knows that his enrollment has significantly increased within his building. But enrollment district-wide in K-5 is up. So cutoffs will have to be determined again based on how many seats is that school taking on. And then how does that flow around special education, ELL, and so on and so forth.
will the appropriation from the state include only funds for this particular project? Mr. Wolk, if I'm not interpreting the question correctly, feel free to clarify in the Q&A again, but that's the way I'm interpreting the question, is if the appropriation will include funds for only the new elementary school as opposed to any projects that are associated with it, you know, like for the Wilkins or
That's,
whatnot.
I can answer that quickly. That's correct. The MSBA requires that these projects be standalone when they stand for an appropriation. So this will only include the money to build and outfit and do all the costs related to the new school.
And the last question we have so far in the Q&A, actually I misspoke, we have a few more. The is solar panels. Will there be any solar panels in the new building?
Yeah, Carl, do you want to answer?
Yes, there will. The exact extent isn't finalized at this point because there, as you may know, there are some variety of ways that a district can own or utilize or rent space for solar panels, but we are figuring on a minimum of earning what's called a lead point, an environmental scorecard for renewable energy, but we're making the entire roof ready for solar panels. So that is an ongoing discussion as to the extent of them.
Next question is, when will the redistricting map be finalized? And second part to that question is, will the employment of the new building be discussed? Do all of the current South and Wilkins teachers and faculty automatically transfer to the new building?
So the answer to that in general is it all take place based upon student needs and population, number one, number two, contract, and number three, administrative decisions on the best interest of the district. So the answer to that in general is no, you just don't see transfers take place for a number of different reasons. Although keeping staff that have been working together is always something that is at the top of the list as well.
Jeff,
Will the,
you
sorry.
do have Amanda has a hand up for quite a while now.
Oh, thank you. I
Sorry.
didn't see that. Sorry, I was looking at the Q&A. My apologies. Mr. Barbosa, do you want to ask a question?
You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Well, first, I'm surprised that TJ doesn't have any kids in the school because he runs this committee as if every child is his. And that it's a well-run committee. It's a master class on how to run committee. And if anyone's ever thinking of being a part of the committee, they should attend one of your meetings. I think this committee is doing an outstanding job. But I have a couple of questions. One of the questions that I was wondering if someone can tell us or tell the taxpayers what's being done to use their tax dollars very efficiently. I know perhaps a short word or two about the heating and the air conditioning system, how that's going to save money for years to come. I know that the high school is the most efficient school in Stoughton. It's saving tax money every single day. And if someone can talk about that, that would be great. The other question I have is, I was wondering if anyone's considered perhaps the principals to get the kids involved at this age level for their school. Sometimes what we get out of the mouths of babes can actually bring out some great ideas. And as far as it's wonderful for parents to drive the kids up to this school and the parents look at the school and say, wow. But I think it would be more gratifying for a parent to drive their kids to this school and the kids to say, wow, that's the school I want to go to. And I was wondering if the principals would have any future ideas or perhaps a lesson plan in their school that would introduce the children to this school and see if they have any things they would like to see in the school.
Jeffrey, if I could speak to something sort of globally, and then maybe Carl can talk, or Joe, operationally about the cost savings issue. So right now we're in the process of honing down the cost of the project, and that involves taking the building design and sending it out to a cost estimator, and two cost estimators, and they come up with their individual costs, they reconcile it, they'll come up with a project cost. Our project team looks at that, they know what this community can absorb generally because of who we appointed to these jobs. And they'll do some value engineering. They'll taper down on something. We did a lot of it at the high school, travertine floors we didn't need. So we honed it down to something, and we had a hard cap on the high school project. So I suspect we will have the same here. That's just general on how we will handle cost savings. So if people are concerned that, what we'll budget at X number of dollars will be, will end up being 20% or more above that, we'll have a hard cap. And we're also talking right now about doing this project under a program that wherein the contractor will hire, we'll do it at a guaranteed maximum price. So we'll set a price, we'll stick to it. It will be within the means. Last point is too, last meeting we had, I spoke generally and the committee had a brief discussion about talking about ways that we could pay for the project. It's easy to say that we'll have a debt exclusion that will create a pile of money and we'll use that to buy bricks, mortar, and whatever else. It's another thing on how that's structured, and that's for people beyond me. So Diane Dolan actually was going to do some discussions with that. I know David Lurie on the Finance Committee had some thoughts on that, so she was going to reach out to him. So we're mindful of that, have been from the beginning. Operationally, someone better than I can speak to that. Maybe Carl or maybe Dr. Baeta, how operationally we'll be able to realize some cost savings.
Well, I think I'm going to defer really to somebody who knows the numbers, and that would be Joyce Cheney, who has experience both with towards the end of the high school project and then the needs of really the one school that we know is being completely shut down potentially, and that's the South.
Thank you, Dr. Baeta. Sorry, I wish I had numbers in front of me. I wasn't prepared for this. The reality is any new school building, any MSBA building is built to code, and code and LEED these days are actually very similar. We will by default be getting a very efficient building. You combine that with what the architects are doing to site this building in terms of this, the solar orientation, the size of the windows. The new building will be all electric. It will not have fossil fuels. And to accomplish that cost effectively, they take all of those site considerations and design elements into consideration. You were right, Mr. Barbosa, in saying that the high school is the cheapest building per square foot for us to operate at the moment. I suspect the metrics are set to do better than that. Just for an example, the Jones building that I'm sitting in right now per square foot cost much more, 10 times almost as much as the high school to operate during the winter season. So it's a combination of things, but I think also in looking at the high school, the one thing we did accomplish as a community when the building was designed is we built a very efficient building for use. It is appropriately sized. Every space has multiple uses. We're not wasting space. We're not wasting money on building, empty space that's not used. And I expect the same from this building.
Yeah, quickly, I would add just that this building is going to be as energy efficient as any building out there in terms of what's happening in the school communities. We will achieve the maximum incentive we can from the MSBA for that by doing that. So I would just second kind of what Joyce just mentioned there about the energy efficiency.
In addition to, if I could add, Tim, not only achieving the higher reimbursement rate from the state, but also rebates from utility companies too, that are very significant these days, for being all electric, for being energy efficient, for investigating geothermal energy sources, for instance.
I think what was the second part of Armando's question?
Oh, I was just wondering if we were able to get the kids to look at this.
Yes.
They have some ideas.
Go ahead, Katie.
No, I was actually going to say that we actually had Courtney come in with other representatives from DRA earlier, and they did a whole presentation and center activity rotations with our second grade students so that they were able to get that feedback and get the enthusiasm from the students that then kind of informed some of the design decisions that we've implemented going forward.
And the second graders were chosen because they were the ones who might benefit by going to the new school ultimately, still be an elementary school.
Yeah, I know
Wonderful.
Katie and I have had a lot of conversations about like at the ramp up. So what, you know, if depending on where we move forward, a lot of ideas about like how we get kids excited, how we do things together, get like that student population excited, because it's going to be a big change whether you go to that school or not, for the way the town schools are kind of made up.
Very good. Thank you.
We have two questions left that we didn't address yet. First, will the new cafeteria / auditorium accommodate all of the students and parents during special performance days, you know, concerts and such?
The seating capacity of the space, yes, could accommodate the entire student body. It's always a question as to how many parents show up also for those same kind of events. So that's a little hard to answer. It might be, you know, that the school, if they are inviting parents and other students simultaneously, they might do, you know, split the school in half and do, you know, first and second graders and third through fifth or something, for a musical performance or something like that. But the seating capacity itself of the cafeteria could accommodate the entire student body. But there's also the bleachers in the gym too, for certain kinds of assemblies that might be appropriate as well. That's a larger space. And if the need arose, you could use not only the bleachers, but also the, you know, bring out stacking of folding chairs too.
And what will happen if the debt exclusion vote does not go through?
Jeff, can I roll this into the next question beyond that, which is semi-related, and then it has
Yes.
actually a separate question
Yes.
tacked onto that. So the debt exclusion vote will probably happen in June. The short answer is that if we don't have a debt exclusion, we can either find a different way to pay for it or not have a school. Frankly, there's no other way to pay for it other than a debt exclusion. So what will happen is the school project will probably, this school project will probably end. The need will remain, so it will go back to the school committee to determine how they address, I'll leave this to Dr. Baeta or someone else, how they address the need, which was at the whole purpose of this, to address a need. So I imagine at some point it will reach critical mass and the South School will have to be dealt with one way or the other. But there won't be this building project for sure. We have a very short timeline to take advantage of. And if we wanted to do another school building project based on the South School needs, we'd have to reapply to the MSBA, submit another statement of interest, different plan, and wait until we were re-invited into the program. During which time, by the way, costs for construction would increase because they've increased significantly since we did the high school. And I don't know how else I can implore people to really take a hard look at this project and vote affirmatively, of course, but ask questions now so that we're not redoing this whole feasibility study process with another project in another 2-3 years, and then, you know, hopefully going through and getting it approved. But so, and actually the adjunct to that was in the next question. I apologize to the next question, next asker. If the debt exclusion is approved, yes, property taxes will go up. We're in the process of calculating how much. That will be somewhat flexible because it's based on the project cost and the amount of MSBA's reimbursement, which we won't know the exact amount for some time, but we know a good ballpark what it would be based on where we're going. So there will be an additional charge to your annual real estate taxes. I believe it's quantified annually, but don't quote me on that. But we'll certainly disclose it. We'll be, if nothing else, we'll be open and honest about what it will cost each taxpayer up front so that you know when you're voting. But on the question of what will happen to the district, that's for someone in the educational area and beyond me. Maybe Dr. Baeta.
Yeah, I'm happy to address some of it, and if Ms. Weiss, on behalf of the school committee, I think it causes a couple of things. Number one, millions of dollars of work that will have to be done at no reimbursement and at a higher cost to operational budgets and capital planning. Second, we would have to start talking about things like modular classrooms because long-term, the South School could not sustain being open another 10 years without spending a significant amount of money and not doing the upgrades. And then with a growing student population, both of those make it pretty financially not feasible without going through this type of a process. I think also that as a reminder that the goal here has been that by consolidating the school, that the future of the elementary schools is not to go out for new elementary schools, but to look at reno addition schools, specifically 2 schools that stand out, built around roughly the same time, the same model, the Daw and the Gibbons, not being a tear down new school, but literally additions and renovations and not building from scratch a brand new elementary school.
Jeff, can I wrap up the second part of that quote? We're running long, so I want to make sure we're mindful of people's time. And so the second part of that question was, are we providing anything for school shootings? And this I wanted to address because we've addressed this before. On the high school project, when we were in the middle of building, the Parkland shooting happened in Florida. And it really did put our project on a head spin where we immediately started focusing on that particular issue. But also, I should point out, it's a question that we can't answer. Security issues, how the building is secured for, the measures in place, those are all done in executive session so that we're not alerting people on how to avoid them and step around them. And I'll defer back to Joe on that, of course, but I just want to tell you, it's something that we've looked at before, looked at it before. We've already had a presentation from our design team on security. We will going forward. And if something happens that we need to address to improve that, we certainly will. Joe, if you could.
Yeah, just real quickly, all of that done with the support of our public safety and tons of folks that are literally experts in the field. This will be a state-of-the-art, latest, if you will, stuff that's available to us as you're building the school. But just really important that it's not only been the professionals in the development of a building that have been part of that conversation, but also our public safety officials.
Great. Can I close out, Jeff, just so we can put a cap on this, unless anybody has any other questions, because we want to make sure we hit everything. But I will point out the school building committee meets every month. I think it's the second Wednesday, if I remember correctly, second Wednesday. We meet every month, the second Wednesday. The agendas are posted online. Any project updates are all posted on social media and elsewhere. We, at the beginning of every meeting, we invite people to ask questions, to make comments, and will forever, as long as, anybody on this committee is still active in the project, that's what we'll do. Please ask questions. And if you don't ask questions, I guarantee we will be in front of you in some capacity, whether you sit on a committee, whether you're part of a community group, we will be in front of you telling you about this project. And it took a while, I'll be honest, for me to get enthusiastic about it because, as I said, I don't, and appreciate Armando's kind words, I don't have kids in the schools, but I am enthusiastic about schools. When this one started to take shape, it was easy to get enthusiastic about it. I hope that you'll take a hard look at it, and you are also. So at that, thank you all for attending. Appreciate you taking the time and listening to us all, particularly me, who can be sometimes long-winded. But there's another presentation at 7 o'clock. Welcome you to, if you have any other questions, listen again, ask again, and certainly post any questions online, and we'll be happy to answer them and provide for you all the information that you need to vote on this. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.